That very first win, that one moment that changed everything. Very first win. Hey. Very first win. Where it began. Very first win.
Hello. I am your host, Robert Hilmer, founder of Goanna Capital. Thanks for joining another episode of Very First Win. Goanna is one of the most well-known investment firms globally, having backed OpenAI, Anthropic, Databricks, Ramp, Canva, Kraken, Open Evidence, Harvey, Glean, and a range of other very well-known private tech companies. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by the first Australian who has come on Very First Win. It's rare to find Australians here in the US. Alex McLeod is the co-founder of Serval, a company we're very interested in, so it's nice to have him on the pod. I'll let him talk more about the business, and then as usual, we will get into Alex's very first win. So Alex, thank you for joining today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
So talk to me just briefly about the business, what you do. Well done on the financing a few months ago. You've obviously got some incredible investors, Sequoia, General Catalyst, etc., backing you. So yeah, tell us more about why you co-founded the business, what you do, why you think you'll win.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give the full picture of what we do as a company, we are building AI agents for IT teams. So Serval is a full IT service management platform. So think ticketing, and kind of tracking what people are requesting and why. And then we've built a very comprehensive, powerful automation system on top of that that's powered by some multiple different kind of AI agents that basically automate the resolution of employee support requests. And so we very much have built the product for IT teams, but what we find is once we deploy it into a company, many other teams start using the platform for their own teams for automating work that is being done. That's what we've built. There's a lot of interest in Serval because the category that we're in is just so large. You have very large incumbents like ServiceNow and Atlassian with Jira Service Management, and some other players as well. But we felt when we started the company and increasingly so that you really needed to kind of rebuild this software category from the ground up in this AI native era to get to the optimal end user experience that we think is possible. And so what's made Serval very unique is we have an automation agent that you can speak with, chat with, to build automations. Those are built actually in code. So code is kind of the source of truth for how actions are executed across systems and how certain types of requests are automated. But you don't need to be a software engineer to build out these workflows. And that becomes very, very powerful because you can become kind of an automation engineer very, very quickly and get to the outcomes that you're looking for rapidly on Serval in a way that you just can't do with incumbent products. So
interesting. What's an example of a use case when you have that land and expand approach and another team has used you, or give an example of one you might not have even expected that came about?
Totally. Yeah. So, where we typically enter, so I guess the standard use cases are things like software access management or, password resets, MFA resets, adding people to distribution lists and groups. So that's often where we'll start, but then quickly the product will expand into other teams. And so those use cases might be things like HR use cases, like submitting PTO requests or getting access to information from a policy perspective. It might be finance team requests like, hey, I need like a temporary ramp card, for example, to spend on this piece of software or for this particular trip that I'm taking. Might be legal team requests like someone wants to get an NDA signed or onboard a new vendor. I need to route that through a legal team. So Serval can automate a lot of the actual the work of kind of speaking to different systems and making API calls to facilitate as much automation as possible, and then also involve the right people at the right time to resolve a particular issue.
Really
But it can get very, very broad. We have engineering teams using the platform, we have sales teams using the platform, we have security teams. As a company scales, most teams kind of become service teams for other parts of the organization in some capacity. And so it becomes a way to facilitate communication between teams and automation of resolution of requests in a really user-friendly way.
I like it a lot. So let's get on to your very first win. What do you remember? Talk to me.
Yeah, so a big thing that came to mind was actually my decision to transition into a computer science degree while I was in university. In a way, like a small decision, but had very, very large ripple effects across the rest of my life. So to give the context here, I grew up in Melbourne, Australia. When I graduated high school, I went to study at University of Melbourne, and my plan at the time was to basically study a Bachelor of Arts degree and then do a postgraduate law degree. And that was just based on my interests and what I had kind of like studied through school. And I certainly enjoyed studying those different subjects. Things like literature and psychology and communications. But I'd also kind of on the side spent a lot of, taught myself how to program, in high school and through university. And I really loved that. I loved computers and building, but it just was not really considered really a career path that was like a viable career path. And so it just never really crossed my mind to study at a university in a significant way. But I was lucky enough that a friend of mine took a subject that was called Informatics at the time. It was basically an intro to programming subject. He took that. He said to me, "Hey, you should really try this as an elective. Like, I think you'll really like it." And it was very poorly branded as a subject, like informatics. Like, that's just not really a term you would hear much at the time or even since. And the description of the course is something about learning how to program using spreadsheets and then doing some basic programming. It just didn't sound particularly exciting, but I decided to take it anyway. And just completely like fell in love with studying the subject of programming and computer science through that. And so that was just incredibly valuable. Of course, for the rest of my career, I took that particular subject, was very much enjoying the work, such to the point of, do my assignments like well ahead of time, as opposed to for my Bachelor of Arts degree, I'd be, like it was always like such a chore to write these massive essays. And so you'd end up kind of doing it pretty close to the due date. And I just at a certain point, doing this kind of elective, decided this is definitely what I want to do. I want to transition into computer science full time. And so I made that decision. And happy to kind of talk about the details along the way. But that was a kind of a major win for me.
Awesome. And how did you find your way to the US? Australians especially travel everywhere, but I think the US is usually a destination that's probably on the harder end of the spectrum to both get to and thrive in. So I think just talk to me about how you got here, but even more interestingly, perhaps, how did you find the first year or two? How have you found it since, etc.?
Totally. Yeah. So I mean, I through studying computer science, and being part of that world, I actually also had kind of like a second win, which was to just be part of this kind of student entrepreneurship program, actually, that I learned about through university. And through doing that, I realized that not only did I want to be, work in software engineering for my career, but I wanted to build products and companies. Like that was very clearly what I wanted to do with my life. Combine a lot of the things that I love, problem solving, being creative, all in one. And at some point through my degree, I obviously recognized that San Francisco or the Bay Area was the place to be if you're interested in building companies in software engineering. It's the epicenter of the world. I made the decision that I should just come out here and just see what it's like. I didn't know if it would be, a couple months that I'd come out and visit or how long it would end up being. When I graduated, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I actually joined a company called Miyagi that was founded in Australia by my cousin. And they were opening an office out here in San Francisco. And so I, came out with the company, that helped me get a visa, have kind of like a great place to land. And, it was obviously like somewhat difficult, kind of like just entering a totally new world, where we didn't really have a big network. But I think one of the great things about San Francisco generally is a lot of people here are transplants, like most people actually, or a lot of people that you might meet. And that means that most people have experienced or, not knowing other folks and all like are very, very happy to kind of get to know you and build a connection and a network. And so that really, really helped in the early days, just, build a network out here and kind of set myself up for the long term.
Do you want to move back to Australia and do anything, or you want to stick around in the US?
Definitely want to stick around. I love Australia. I love, of course, family and friends there, and I love seeing them. But it's just kind of being here, being in this kind of like epicenter of technology and particularly the big kind of shifts that are happening right now in technology is just, so exhilarating and exciting to kind of be a part of. And I want to be here as long as possible to kind of be in the middle of that.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome. Congratulations with the business, and let's get together soon.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks, Robert. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.